Hello there. I'm just going to be doing a rigging tutorial because I haven't done a tutorial in a while, and I thought, hey, I might as well do one for once because I haven't done one in a while. So this is a character I just made. It's a witch. It has something to do with a game I'm making right now. I haven't done any of the animations or anything. Like literally, I've only just put this rig on, and because it is such a fresh rig, this is like the kind of results you get from it. So there's a few problems, and mainly that all the bone influence regions are too big, and we've even got the wrong kind of bone kinetics, you might say. I'm not sure what the word is, but if we go over here, using Anime Studio 8 Pro, by the way, if we go right here to this bone layer for the witch side, you have to go to bones and you have to go to region binding. And the difference between flexible binding and region binding is that in flexible binding, every bone affects everything, every little vector point in this character, which is made up of lots of different layers. So, for instance, this bone will affect every single part of this rig, even though it has a very small influence compared to most of the other bones. Whereas, actually, you can't see that there because I can put it back on flexible. Now, you may notice that by me pulling this bone, it also pulls some stuff over here. And that's not necessarily desirable. In some cases it is, like if you're doing, I don't know. Actually, I don't even know. Usually I just use region binding, because that way anything that's not inside this little red region right here will not be affected by this bone, and generally I find that to be more manageable than flexible binding where everything is affected by everything else. So now we're just going to go through here and we're going to use the what you call the bone influence tool. Let's see. Tooltip, come on. No, nothing. Okay, no shortcut. But if you just click and drag with the left mouse button, and you can make just the bone influence region smaller, so it turns red when you have it selected. It's not good. Maybe I can bind points to bones. Okay, I'll go over that later. But it's really not so important what the areas of influence are for larger areas, but especially with arms where you have multiple joints, it's important to have your bone influences in the right way, or at least properly adjusted. And in fact, here they're mostly already right, and because I did this kind of fast and sloppily, the rig is kind of offset, so to get this arm to be completely encapsulated inside of this bone influence, I'd have to make it really, really big, and that would mess things up. But that's not super important when you bind most of your layers, which is what I usually do. Okay, and now that that's neatened up, it won't have changed much, but like the hat still wigs out. Oh, that's a weird eye. It's always fun to see that sort of thing. Now we're going to go down to the bone layer again. This is an empty layer. I should probably delete that. That's something I never got to using. If we're going to go down here now, all these individual vector layers are controlled by different bones. Well, they're not controlled by different bones yet, but what we're going to do is we're going to bind each one to a different bone using, I guess, bind layer to bone tool. Is there a shortcut for that? Dang it, it never shows me the name when I need to know the name. Anime Studio is a little quirky in some ways, especially when you're drawing vectors. But so anyway, what I do here is, now that I have this selected, these are the set of points that I am going to bind to a bone, and so I want these to only be controlled by the head bone, which is right here. If I was not lazy, I would go through and name all these bones to their corresponding parts, but I have not done that, so this bone here has no name. But I'm not really going to worry about that right now. And so now this bone has been bound to here, and for most of these layers we can just bind bones. A few of them, what we're going to have to do is bind a set of points to a bone, but I'll get into that later. If I choose to use this layer, which I probably won't, I'm not that bound. But for now, that's something I'm not sure I'm going to use. Let's see, bind that. Basically, most of the facial features in the head itself you want bound to the head bone. Things like hats and hair, you might not, just for those things can be more wavy. Now once we get into the left arm, I'm not going to bind this one to any particular bone just because of, actually neither of the arms I'm going to do that with because they have to be kind of flexible. Not going to do that with the legs, not with the right arm, not with the right hand. Okay, and now if we go and select the bone layer as a whole, this is by the way the manipulate bones tool. The head still wigs out, but you'll notice that, I mean the hat, not the head. The hat still wigs out. But the head is for the most part right, and the hands are all screwed out. Oh, the legs are okay. The legs are okay. Oh wait, what's that? That's not good. Okay, I think I may not have parented that bone. Yeah, this isn't parented. Okay. Sometimes you'll find that, especially if you copy and paste bones or you deselect a bone and then you draw another bone, it won't be controlled by the bone you want it to be controlled by. So in that case, you're going to have to go to, I don't know what any of these things are called. I just go by the icons. But basically, this is like the parent to bone tool. You can select different bones by holding down the Alt key, and that'll show you which one it's parented to. In this case, this bone has no parent, so to parent it to a new bone, I'm just going to click on the upper leg bone, and then I should be good. It's always important to make sure that everything is affected by at least another bone. Yeah, here that's a problem. That should not be happening. I don't know. So, like again, Anime Studio is quirky. Maybe I'm doing something wrong sometimes, but I am by no means a pro at this program. But I haven't worked out all the little quirks yet. There's just some, I've been using it for a while, but there are some strange either glitches or concepts I don't really understand. But looks like these all work. Okay, yep, now we're good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bind individual sets of points to individual bones. So like we'll start with the left arm. It's on the right side of the character, but that's because we're viewing it from a perspective. So it's the which is left. Now what we have to do is we have to go here. It's bind points, select, deselect. I don't know, but it's bind points to bone. And again, just like with the parenting tool, what we do is we hold Alt to select a bone, and then I can highlight these points, and then by hitting space, that is what actually binds them. It's a kind of weird operation to do, but again, you hit Alt, you hold and click on a bone. Hold Alt and click on a bone, and then once you've selected points, you just hit space, and they're bound. And so that should hopefully work. Yeah, okay. It's a little weird. Yeah, I may want to fix that. But for now, I'm kind of in a rush, so we're not going to worry about that. And then do the same thing with the hand. I would bind the hand as a whole to the hand bone, but I'm not going to bother just because of because I have other points that are going into this bone. So it looks kind of weird if you have parts of your hand joint sticking out of your arm. So again, we have the bone selected with Alt, hit space once I've selected these 2 points, and then hold Alt again, select the points we haven't selected before, and then just to make sure everything's working properly, or kind of properly. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that looks about right. That's okay. I can clean things up later. And actually, being way too much of a perfectionist. I just noticed this right here should be sharp. Okay, yeah. OCD. What can I say? And then we're gonna do that with the other few. sorry. Slightly out of it. Okay. What the heck? Oh, wrong tool. Alright. Actually. Okay, that's still alright. Alright, now we'll test that. Oh, good. Okay. It's mostly there. Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, the hat is still really screwed up, but we'll fix that very soon. And we're going to do the same thing with the legs. And also, when you are making vector layers, you always want to make sure, like, even though here I have a sock, if this was just one solid color, I would still want to have these 2 points. In fact, I should probably have them closer to where the actual joint is, because that makes the bending smoother. More ideally like that. But I'm not gonna worry about it. I can always scale down the bone size themselves. The bone sizes themselves. I'm sorry, I'm stuttering left and right. But now we are going to do the same thing again. Usually I only bind the upper bones, you could say. If you have to select extra points, hold shift before you click and drag. And always make sure you hit space to make sure you have finalized the bone binding. I don't know. That looks okay. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I think I'm just going to fix that bone itself. So to do that, if you ever need to change bone sizes, it's a little meticulous, but you have to go to transform bone. The transform bone tool behaves differently when you're on the zero frame than it does when you're keyframing anywhere else. So always be aware of that, and I'm just going to drag, I guess, kind of center that. Anime Studio doesn't usually require you to be super precise, but with bones it helps. Yeah, I don't know, but at the same time they're kind of hard to see legs, so I'm not sure. But for the most part, as long as the hand isn't affecting this anymore, I think we're okay. So now I'm going to go down to the other leg, which would be left leg, okay. Excuse me. Again, bind points to bone. Here we can select the top bone, bind top points, select the middle bone. This one isn't as far off, actually. If I was being very neat, I would make sure that the bones here and the bones here were the same. But I have not done so. I'm just winging this. This isn't a super important part of the project I'm doing, so it doesn't matter that much. And yep, okay, this isn't affected. And then going to fix that. Okay, gotta hide this. It's a little annoying that you can move parents of bones, but that it won't move the children. I get why you do that, but at the same time, it's kind of inconvenient for when you have to scale things. Let's see. Now let's just check that. It doesn't look very nice or graceful now, but it'll do. These are very, very simple joints. It's not a very complicated character, so I'm not being that simple. See this bend right here? I need to do something about that. It should be straighter, I suppose. You know, maybe making the points. There's these points right here. I'm going to see if I make it sharp. Ooh, that's kind of better. Not really. I'm just gonna leave it the way it is. I just don't really have the time for this level of perfection. I thought I hit the undo button. What? Okay, screw it. Another thing with Anime Studios is it gets confused sometimes. But let's see. Yeah, that's the way it was before. Right. And I'm sorry, I'm taking too long. Let's see. I gotta get up here. Alright, and then for the hat is probably the most complicated thing we're going to rig. Which is kind of sad, but I have to think about what goes where. Okay, so obviously the brim should be bound to, I think, most likely the head of the witch. I'm not so sure about the rest of it yet, but if you ever need to deselect points, just select them a second time by holding shift and they'll go away. And now again, press space. Let's see. Yeah, okay, that works better. You know, I may not have to do a whole lot of fixing for the hat. Okay, that point needs to be bound to something. Sorry, this is taking so long. I just, I'm doing this on the fly. I have to figure out what gets rigged to where. But I think this will work fine if I just bind. I think what I'll do, this is kind of weird, but I'll bind the base. Yeah, I'll bind. I guess the base of whatever you call this part of the hat to that bone and see. I don't know. Well, the thing is, the hat won't move that much anyway, so it's okay, I guess. But could be better. But seeing as it's mostly going to be a static object, and the thing that's going to turn the most is really just this part of the head. I'm not overall I'm not that concerned. It's probably this part that would really change more. Although, yeah, okay, yeah, I will bind these. Are you bound to anything? You are not. All right. That's not right. Okay. And then hopefully everything else will just be auto bind. Okay. Ooh, that's not so good. Anime Studio, it's a weird program. Okay, but also I'm just being sloppy. So, wait. The other thing is, if you want to bind more points to a bone, you need to make sure that you have all the other points already bound, selected, or they will be unbound when you add new bones, and that's never particularly good for a project. I think I'm going to put bone constraints on here just because, I don't know, it looks okay, but again, for the most part, the hat is going to be pretty much static, so yeah, this is fine. It's a very, very simple character, not a lot of complex geometry, but oh, that's not particularly good. The problem with making really short, stubby legs is it's hard to do walk cycles because you just don't have they don't the legs don't stretch very far at all. So, but anyway, we went from having something where if I moved one bone, the whole thing would whiz out to a rig, and that's how I really do it. It's a combination of finding individual points, binding entire layers in the case of most of the facial features. For more complex geometry, bind points like with the hat and the arms and the feet. And also, always make sure you have your bones set to region binding, because flexible binding is fine, but I find, at least in terms of what I do, it's a lot easier and looks better when the bones bind when I have region binding set. And I think I'm forgetting something. Oh, so yeah, and so when you're using tools like bind to bone, with bind to bone, you just click the bone, just click. But when you're doing bind points, it's slightly more complicated. You hold Alt to select the bone itself, and then click and drag. And then once you've done that, you hit space to finalize. But other than that, there's not much else to it. And next, I will be showing you how to animate this thing. Do some basic keyframes. Maybe a walk cycle. But it's a pretty simple character, although even for a simple character it has a lot of layers, so you can imagine how complicated some of the more, I suppose you could say, high-tech characters look that people make with this program. Save your progress. That's something I should have done a lot throughout the video. You don't want it to crash. In the 8 version, it does save for you. But anyway, I've been rambling. That's it. Thank you for watching, and subscribe.